Hello, Eurovision friends. Thank you so much for coming to my channel, Eurovision Histories, for my very first Q&A video. You guys left a whole lot of questions in the community tab of my channel. I announced this video like 3 times, and I thought I could do it during Eurovision week, but there was just so much to cover that I kind of pushed it back further and further, and now I'm finally ready to answer your questions. I hope you're still interested. This is part number 1 of this Q&A because you guys left so many questions that it is enough to do 2 parts. This is a bit of a rambling video maybe because I'm just going to look at your question and answer it as best I can. I didn't prepare all that much. So let's get right to it. Here is the first question. And it's Licori Valdi who says, okay, I have a tough one for you. How do you face the existential void and depression after Eurovision, if any? There is. And it hit me especially hard this year. Well, I face it by doing videos such as this one. We have our Eurovision Winners Knockout, which I'm doing at the moment to kind of ease the pain a little bit. And then I also try to get back to some of the other hobbies I have that kind of suffered during Eurovision, like learning languages and stuff like that. So you need something to fill the void and to distract you. I hope some of my videos can help with that, but I'm sure all of you have other hobbies as well. Then Eurovision Obsessed wants to know, which countries do you want to see winning in the upcoming years? For me, it's Armenia, Lithuania, Albania, Finland, and Ireland. So this is not the first time for a country to win, but also like Finland and Ireland, countries that have already won. In that case, I would say I want France to win soon because I think a Eurovision hosted by France would be quite special and quite different from the Eurovisions we've had in the last couple of years, which have become quite standard in a way. A lot of things are quite similar from year to year, and I think France could really mix it up a bit and change the whole way things are being done. And I also think that Spain should win rather soon because they have waited for such a long time. And then I think we'll have another question about first-time winners. But I also think Finland would be cool to see them host again, but also to have another Irish win. So I kind of agree with Eurovision Obsessed here, would be quite cool. And obviously I would like my own country to win sooner rather than later, but I'm not sure whether that will happen anytime soon, unfortunately. Noise Galleon says, what country do you think is most likely to get their first ever win? Interesting. I think maybe Lithuania. They haven't been as close as Iceland or Malta or Cyprus, who have come second, but Lithuania is so obsessed with Eurovision that I just feel like they could find the right song and then the whole country will be behind it and support it all the way to the win. Obviously, Iceland and Malta would do the same thing, but I could see Lithuania do it rather soon, and I would really love to see Iceland, for example, win because they are so obsessed with Eurovision and love Eurovision. I'm not sure where they would host it exactly, but I think it would be a really cool Eurovision because the whole country, not just the city where the whole thing is hosted, but the whole country would be 100% with it, and I would love to see that, and I would probably go if Iceland ever hosts. Then the man in blue flames wants to know, what countries would you want to have added to the contest and what kinds of songs would fit them or give them a good result? I'm interpreting this as countries that have not participated in the past. I am not against another non-European country joining. For example, I think Canada would make a lot of sense. They're quite European in their culture, and I think they could add some fun things to the contest. Australia participating doesn't seem weird to me anymore. It did in the beginning, but now it's just normal to talk about the Australian entry like you talk about the Italian or the Greek entry. I think for some casual viewers, it's still quite strange to have Australia there. But if we add someone else from anywhere in the world, I would add probably Canada in the end. And they could send anything. They have great pop music, but they could also send something in French, maybe from Quebec. So yeah, they have a very interesting culture, I think, and could add something to the contest. Then TMOOAM says, which or wants to know which countries that aren't currently participating in ESC do you miss the most and why? Kind of all of them, to be honest. I want as many countries as possible to participate, but I do miss Andorra a bit because I love the smaller countries. I think that's always fun to see what they bring to the table. And I liked quite a few of their entries, to be honest. I miss from the music that they sent, Hungary, Turkey as well. They sent some really good songs over the years. So that would be good if they could return. But as I said, really anything, and also Bosnia and Herzegovina, because I just love music from that part of Europe and in the national language as well. I quite miss them. And really also Macedonia, Bulgaria. I mean, all of them, like I said. And Romania, I think if they actually change their national final, they could actually win Eurovision quite easily because they have a very good pop music scene. They just haven't found the right way to select entries, I think. So I hope they return as well. I think now I've almost said everyone. Silent Station wants to know, how do you see the future of Eurovision considering the history of this event, current trends, etc.? How different could Eurovision be, let's say, after 20 to 30 years? In general, I am not that worried, but I'm a little worried, not just because of the problems we saw this year with the voting. I talked about that in my grand final review. The jury voting being too predictable, some of the songs that were not helped by the jury being too obvious, like Albania, the televoting being too obvious in a lot of cases as well. And I think that might endanger Eurovision because people just don't want to watch that anymore because it seems too predictable. And all of these people that said it's all political, it's all diaspora voting and neighbor voting. I always said that they're wrong about that. In the last couple of years, I have seen some things that suggest that they might be right a bit more now than they were in the past. That's one thing. But I also believe in the EBU. They love this contest. There's lots of people in there that really like this contest and wanted to go on. And over the last decades, 7 decades, they have really always found a way to solve issues like that. So I'm a bit hopeful that they might find a good solution for that. The thing that I'm a bit worried about is the fact that Eurovision is based on national broadcasters competing, and with the internet and streaming and all of this becoming more and more important, net public broadcasters become less and less important. And I'm just not sure how in 30 years, whether every participating country will have a public broadcaster, whether people will actually watch television anymore, or whether but Eurovision has found a good way to also be engaged in the online conversation. You can watch it on YouTube. So maybe in 30 years, it won't be shown on all the different channels anymore, but rather on YouTube or some new streaming platform that we don't even know yet. So yeah, it has to adapt with the times, but I do see the potential that it can do that. Sometimes a bit slowly, to be honest, but I think overall, I'm not that worried that it will completely disappear. Yeah, I hope that's a useful answer for that question. Stephen Good wants to know, which song do you think would have won had it been in another year? Example, if Italy 1974 was in 1975, it would have won hands down. I agree with the last assessment. I think Giulio da Cinquetti would have been our first double winner ahead of Johnny Logan and Loreen had she actually not performed in the same year as ABBA. And some other ones, I would say, are maybe the Common Linnets could have won in 2015. Probably, actually, yeah. If they hadn't competed against Conchita, Caddy would probably have won this year and maybe also 2024 had he not competed against Loreen. There's actually lots of examples like this. Maybe Baby Lasagna, not maybe, definitely Baby Lasagna would have won this year had he not competed against Nemo. So yeah, lots of examples in Eurovision history where a song kind of went the wrong year and could have won any other year. Maybe Volare, but the two songs that were better than Volare in 1958, I don't really understand why they came first and second, to be honest. If you have more of these, I can't think of any right now, but if you have more, please leave a comment and let us know who you think would have won in another year. Great question. Thank you for that. Ben Un says, do you listen to ESC songs whole year long or just in periods? Very interesting question as well. I do listen to Eurovision songs mostly from March to May, the new ones, but I do listen to Eurovision songs year round, but not as excessive as during these 3 months, obviously, because otherwise I couldn't listen to any other music really. I have a few songs in my gym playlist that come up over and over again, what's their name? Inga and Anush from Armenia, for example, is great for the gym. Erika Wickmann has made it to that list as well. Obviously, Måneskin and Mahmoud. But there are also periods in the year where I listen to other stuff like Bob Dylan and stuff like that. Completely different music, because that's also important to kind of cleanse your palate from time to time. But Eurovision has such a long history. I love listening to the older songs. I just added a Belgian song from the 60s to my playlist again, which I love listening to. So yeah, I'll do another video, I think, of my favorites, top 20 overall favorites in Eurovision, because some of you also asked that. By the way, I can't answer all of the questions you posted, so I chose a few of them. Sorry, I was starting to ramble a bit. So yeah, I listen to Eurovision songs throughout the year, but not as much as during March, April, and May, and probably also February. I just remembered. Then Jams wants to know, do you watch Eurovision alone or with family and friends? Not with family anymore. I used to do that in the past when I still lived at home, but now my family doesn't really care about Eurovision anymore. I am always a bit torn whether to invite people and have them see all the craziness that goes on when I watch Eurovision, especially during the voting, like going crazy when something doesn't go the way I thought it was going to go, or being overjoyed when it does, or when it's even better than I expected. So I usually invite friends that know me very well, that also know that I'm not crazy, because if I invite people that I don't really know, they might get the wrong impression of me that night. I'm not sure whether you can relate to that, but that's basically. So this year I did watch it with friends. Last year I did not. Then Heide Park. Not sure whether that's your name or whether you're named after an amusement park in Germany. How long does the preparation and the editing of the videos take? Oh, that's not Eurovision related, that's channel related. Thank you for that question as well. It really depends what kind of video it is. I have help with the editing and with the graphics as well. I don't do all of that on my own, but the person that does it wants to stay in the shadows, which is fine. So it really depends. Sometimes I'm just rambling, talking, like the top 37 video is just me talking about the songs. Not a lot of preparation goes into it. And then it just takes basically the time that you watch the video, so like 30 minutes or something. But then other videos like how did Celine Dion win Eurovision, or the look backs at past Eurovisions, that takes a lot longer, a lot of preparation, watching a lot of material as well. So it's hard to say how long it really takes, but usually a video doesn't take over an hour to make all overall. And the editing, I also have help with that. Sometimes I do edit it alone. Usually when there's problems with the editing, it was me doing it because I'm not as good, but it's not that difficult. I found a way now to signal to myself, I need to cut here. So I leave a bit of time. Before, sometimes I forgot to cut things out and that was awkward. But now I think I found a way to do it. So thank you for that question as well. Maiko32 wants to know, are you taking some time off work around Eurovision? Yes, I usually take a Eurovision week off because there's no way I can work and also do everything that I'm doing. I love watching the rehearsals. I do a lot of videos during Eurovision week. And so, yes, I take time off, and it's the most relaxing time of the year for me that week until the results roll in. And then sometimes I'm not as relaxed anymore. Thank you for that question too. Kostas wants to know, which in your opinion is the most underrated, underappreciated ESC entry of all time? That's a great question. Obviously, this is very subjective. Underrated, overrated always is based on my opinion of the song compared to the result it received. I think it's probably Senhora do Mar by Vania Fernandes for Portugal in 2008, I want to say. I love that song. I listen to that song a lot. I re-add it to my playlist from time to time. I love the energy and the power. And I think it only came 13th or something, which it won its semi, if I remember correctly, but then only came 13th. And that's crazy to me because it's a great, great song. So that would be one. Quien maneja mi barco, which came last, is a great song as well. Monts et Merveilles by Louisa Bailèche for France in 2003 didn't do well at all, but it's one of my favorite songs. I think it didn't do well because of the hair thing incident. If you know what I'm talking about, you're a great big Eurovision fan, I think. So these would be the songs that come to my mind right now. Let me know your opinions on this, because that might be very interesting, and I might remember a few more that would have deserved to win as well. By the way, for the question, I just thought of this. Who would have won another year? I think Johanna and Is It True for Iceland might have won any other year, not competing against Alexander Rybak as well. Then Arkaniak says, what is your favorite Eurovision artist song who did not get through national finals for this year and got any favorites from prior years? The last part of the question, I think, is a whole video in itself, so I'm going to skip that part. But for this year, I would say Tristeja by Josh in Portugal was one of my big favorites. And actually, a lot of songs in the Portuguese national final I would have loved to see at Eurovision. The song that did go to Eurovision wasn't one of my favorites. And the other one, I think, that comes to mind right away is Georgia and La Cura per Me in Italy, which I love that song so much. I listened to it a lot, and I was very sad that it did not go to Eurovision. And I think it might have been a contender actually this year had they chosen it. I love Lucio Corsi as well, obviously. I would have loved Oli and Ballora Nostalgia too. I just love Italian entries too. But yeah, Georgia, La Cura per Me probably is the one this year. Then Devlin9718 says, if you had to make the perfect Eurovision entry by picking a previous vocalist, songs, staging visuals, choreography, and any other elements you want to include from previous performances, how would you do it? Oh my God. Vocalist, I would pick her. Where is it here? Celine. Song, maybe Molitva. But that already doesn't make all that much sense, Celine singing Molitva, but still, staging visuals. I mean, this is a very hard question, to be honest, because everything has to work together as well. So I'm not sure I can answer that, honestly. But I'm just going to tell you my favorite vocalist, song, and so on. Best vocalist, I think, is Celine, probably. Song, probably Molitva or Ziti Buoni. Staging, my favorite staging. Maybe Euphoria, probably. Choreography, Euphoria as well. And so, sorry, I'm not really answering your question, but it's a bit difficult. But any song with Celine would be improved, in my subjective personal opinion. Thank you for the question, though. Then Frederick1406 asks, has Eurovision inspired your love for learning new languages or travel? In my case, I went to Georgia in 2019, and I really linked that travel to the fascination the country had for me at Eurovision. Very interesting question. I talked about this a bit in my video, how I became a Eurovision fan. So maybe check that out. But it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. I don't really know what came first, but I think my love for languages and cultures was there first because I didn't know what Eurovision was when I was 6, 7 years old or something. And then discovering Eurovision kind of included everything that I love, like languages, cultures, music as well. And so, yes, it has inspired my love for learning languages even more. So it's kind of one feeds the other and the other way around as well. I'm learning Croatian at the moment because I want to understand more of the songs. And I think that listening to music in another language is helping a lot to learn that language. I'm trying to learn Italian a bit as well, and listening to so much Italian music that I discover through Eurovision and Sanremo helps a lot with that. So I guess that's a yes. For travel, I think I would have visited all of these countries anyway, but having songs in the languages of these countries in my ear while I walk through these streets, because I know songs from Eurovision, is always fun and interesting. And well, in Italy, for example, there was a big, there are these free summer concerts, and I knew a lot of artists from Sanremo and from Eurovision as well. So I went to that concert, had a great time. I probably wouldn't have gone to a concert like that if I didn't know any of the artists, obviously. So that's always fun. And yeah, so yes is the answer to your question, I guess. Then Akanichts wants to know, could you imagine being a host, stage designer, or another Eurovision-related worker? Yes, not a stage designer. I have no idea how to do that. Or do you mean like someone who choreographs a performance? I might have some ideas, but then someone else has to do everything else. I could, give some ideas. Other Eurovision-related worker, I don't know, but I would love being a host, honestly. I love languages. I speak a lot of them. I think it's not going to happen because I don't work in television, and everyone has probably some hosts that are more suitable than me. But that would be my dream job at a Eurovision Song Contest, because I'm also not a great singer, so I can't do that, most certainly. Then TD Brick wants to know, out of all the countries who have ever competed in Eurovision, which is your favorite and which is your least favorite country? I guess counting Serbia and Montenegro and Morocco. Wow. For the least favorite, that's very hard to answer, honestly. Maybe Morocco, because they only have one song and it's from the 80s. Or something like Slovakia, because they didn't have a lot of chance to, send great entries because they haven't participated in so long. Yeah, maybe something like that. And my favorites, I think, might be Portugal, because they always do their own thing, and we kind of vibe with I kind of vibe with the songs that they send to their national final, that compete in the national final, and that they send to Eurovision. And same thing for Italy as well. I love a lot of entries in Sanremo every single year, and I discover new artists, and probably these two, even though I have to say in the earlier years, it's maybe Luxembourg even. And in the 80s and 90s, it might be another country. I haven't heard all the songs from that period yet. So, but in recent years, if that's your question, it's definitely Italy and then Portugal, I would say. But I also love a lot of songs from the Balkan countries. If it's in a national language with some traditional elements and it has some good lyrics, you have me. And Portugal and Italy are very good at doing that, especially, which is why they are my favorite countries, I think. Then Films, I think is the name. How much does first impression usually make people dislike an entry, to the extent that they would still dislike or underrate the song once the singer has improved their vocal, etc.? This is because I love Baller and Poison Cake. This is a question from before Eurovision happened. I think there is I call it the Gustav effect, who represented Belgium, obviously, last year, and he won the national final against some fan favorites, and people really kind of wrote the song off as too dated, not good enough. And then once it was on stage, it improved in people's opinion. And I think that happens quite a bit in Eurovision, especially songs that compete in national finals and win against fan favorites or songs that people prefer to that one. They don't really recognize why it won the national final and why it might do well at Eurovision. And we also always have to remember that there's always a glow up between the national final and Eurovision, or the selection, internal selection in Eurovision. Not always, but there can be. And people do judge too harshly when it comes to the first impression, and then are surprised during Eurovision week. Maybe me as well. Let me know if you think that I do that sometimes. Then ESC Riley says, what country that hasn't hosted yet would put on the best show? Like I said, I think, well, hasn't hosted yet. I think that would be Iceland because the whole country loves Eurovision. Malta as well, maybe. And then this entire island nation could be completely in Eurovision fever. And I think that would translate to the show, and their love for the competition would just, really show during the show as well. So that would be my answer to that. Pedro Navais wants to know what was the first ever edition of Eurovision that you kept up with as a fan, and also what is your earliest Eurovision-related memory? My earliest Eurovision-related memory, I talked about that in my ranking of all the winners, but also in my video, How I Became a Eurovision Fan, is the title of that video, is Gildo Horn representing Germany, because it was a big deal in Germany in 1998. I was old enough to remember and to understand what was going on, and we watched that performance as well. And the first ever edition I watched as a fan, as a real fan, 100%, I think was 2003, because I remember a lot of the songs. I listened to the songs beforehand, and the years before that, I think that was also the year that the internet kind of came to my village, I guess. So that might have had an influence as well. But yeah, 2003, I think that was the year I started listening to older winners and watching older editions, ordering some DVDs of older editions. So yeah, 2003 is probably the year. Thank you for the question. Then Baby Grogu says, if someone from Eurovision fan media or Eurovision blogger YouTuber decides to file a petition addressed to the EBU or request for voting system changes, particularly adding the third party, for example, the Demoscopic jury, would you join them? The answer is yes, and I also answered under that comment already that I did write to the EBU the day after the grand final asking for some changes. I haven't gotten a reply yet. I think they replied to all of us with some of the statements that they've made. So I did do that because I wanted to channel my disappointment into something productive. And I would say that we have to continue doing that throughout the year, because if we don't, then not a lot will change, probably. And I did write them about the Demoscopic jury, which I think would be a great addition to the voting and even out some of the problems that the televote and the jury vote have. Thank you for that question. Sebastian Darlov wants to know my favorite ESC host or hosts. There are a lot. I love Petra Mede, obviously. I liked Hazel Brugger this year, even though there were some awkward moments. I loved Anke Engelke in 2011 and also Filomena when Portugal hosted. So that would probably be my favorites over the years. My best ESC memory. I was in Kiev for Eurovision 2017 and Portugal won, and everyone kind of celebrated their win, even though their own countries had lost. And that was this moment where I felt Eurovision is really something different. It's not like soccer where people would be disappointed that their country lost. And I really loved that moment. So that's a great memory for me. And then the most overrated entry of all time. I guess that's a song that won, probably. And then going with my ranking of all the winners, you might have seen that I ranked Dima Bilan very low and also Sandra Kim very low. I think those are the most overrated entries then, I guess. Maybe also We Are the Winners by LT United. I didn't like that song at all, and it came like 5th, I think. Not a big fan of that either. Yeah. One of that. Let me know in the comments your most overrated entry of all time. Danu Ostred 1900 wants to know, do you prefer the contest after or before the year 2000? And which do you think is the worst entry of all time? First, before or after? That's very hard to answer, really, because after 2000 is really... There's a lot of nostalgia for me. I have a lot of memories connected to the entries, to the editions. Who did I watch it with? What did I do? Where did I listen to the songs a lot? Because I've moved a lot over the years as well. And it's just something that is part of my own life and my own memories. And before the year 2000 is more like discovering history in a way because I hadn't watched them on my own. I love watching them. I love listening to these older songs and see the progression of Eurovision throughout the years. That's why this channel is called Eurovision Histories. But it's two very different things. But I love that both of these are part of Eurovision history in a way. So I would probably say after because it's more personal to me, but both have their merit, definitely. And then which is the worst entry of all time? There's this song, I think it's 2004, Swiss entry, Pietro and the Music Friends or something like that. And the song is called Celebrate. It's terribly sung. It's a terrible song when it comes to the composition and the lyrics. The problem is, and why it is my worst entry of all time, I have it stuck in my head from time to time. I mean, it's not even related to Eurovision. It could be August, and I haven't thought about Eurovision for a while, and the song pops in my head. I don't know why. I don't like it, and that's my worst entry of all time. For that reason, probably. AAS says, do you think that a small country, I am from Greece, by the way, can ever win and host? Of course, Eurovision has become too expensive, and even countries like Austria complaining about the cost. A lot of countries have withdrawn, especially from the Balkan area, and I wonder if the contest still goes north, there will be more withdrawals in the future. The first question, can a small country win Eurovision? I think, yes, it can. There are some difficulties added for smaller countries. They have less neighbors. They don't have diaspora. So especially in the televote, they might suffer a bit. We've seen that for San Marino, for example. I don't think Greece is a small country, honestly, because you did win and you did host. So I don't think you meant that. But I think any country can win, really, if they have a great, great song. Sometimes you need an even better song. If you're a smaller country, I think that's true, unfortunately. But the first part of the question, yes, a small country can win. The second part is very interesting to me because this also relates to the question about the future of Eurovision. I think if the contest becomes more and more expensive and extravagant and countries have to pay higher and higher participation fees, that will be a big problem in the long run. I think they have to think about downsizing Eurovision a bit when it comes to the cost. Because not every country can pay that. I do agree with that. I think the fact that a lot of Southeastern European countries are withdrawing more and more, I think there's a lack of interest, sometimes because the national selections aren't good enough or stuff like that, but also because the cost is just too high for a country like Montenegro, for example. That can be a problem, and they have to address this by making some changes. I don't think we need the biggest lights and the biggest stage. Sometimes with 6 performers on stage, it even looks a bit empty, to be honest. So downsizing it a bit might be a good idea. Dan GLL wants to know, I basically hear from all non-Italians, including among my international colleagues, that the Italian language sounds nice or even beautiful. What does it mean? Could you elaborate on that, since it seems that a good chunk of our success at the Eurovision seems language related? I don't think it's only language related. I think Sanremo is a great selection method, and all your biggest stars enter Sanremo, and then if they win, might go to Eurovision. I think that's more of the reason why Italy does so well. And the winner of Sanremo also gets a lot of airplay in Italy, especially, but also in some other countries. So that always helps. Italian just sounds very beautiful to me as well. All of the Romance languages really do, but Italian especially. I just think all of the vowels that you use, the melodic way of talking as well, it almost sounds a bit like singing already when you just talk. And then when you sing, it's even more beautiful. I'm sure there are some linguistic theories why people think Italian is more beautiful than another language, but that would be my answer. I love it too. I think a lot of Germans do, and the more north you go, the more beautiful people think it is. There's also like memories of good holidays that you've had in the south. Maybe that helps as well. But yeah. Definitely an aspect here. But then again, cha-cha-cha in Italian would maybe not have done as well as cha-cha-cha in Finnish, because Finnish just adds a different vibe to the song. And so it doesn't mean that any song sung in Italian will automatically do better, I don't think. So that was part number 1 of the first Q&A on this channel ever. Part number 2 will be coming out in the next couple of days, probably. So do subscribe if you don't want to miss that, and then I'll see you for part 2.